You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I did something that I've never done before.
Wow, in the pandemic, you managed to figure out something new to do that you've never done.
Never done before. Heard a lot about it.
Suddenly worried.
Don't know why I waited so long because it was so fun. All right, are we ready?
Yep.
I made a vision board.
No.
I love it. Okay, so I have immediately
Tell
5
us
questions.
about it.
Yeah, tell us about it, and then I have 5 questions.
Okay. Some friends thought it would be fun to do, and I thought yes. And so we, managed to work out a way to do this, so we're not all together and everything. But like sit down, and I have a ridiculous number of magazines I've just kept. I found the IKEA catalog from 2002. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that. I don't know why. Price check. Oh, that's how much the scavarage was then. I don't know why I kept it, but I still have it. And I just keep a lot of magazines. So it was really fun cutting them all up. And we looked up, things you need to think about before you start with your vision board. It's not just about putting the picture on there. It's about why. Why is that picture there? So yeah.
Wait, just to clarify, did images from the 2002 IKEA catalog make it onto your vision board?
No, but I'll tell you.
Okay, just checking.
A 2008 J. Crew catalog got cut up, and I don't know why I kept that either. But it's it's sometimes interesting to see the paper stocks change a lot.
I love a good paper stock change.
Yeah, there were some changes. So, but I'd never done that before. Have any of you made a vision board?
I've never made a vision board, but I did set some intentions for New Year's. I wrote them down and then I burned them.
What?
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. My therapist last year was like she suggested that to get things out of my brain and out of my mind, write them down and burn them. So I decided that seemed like a good concept also for setting intentions, write them down, think about them, and then burn them. So I did that. What's the burning? The burn is what does that signify? Just I guess when you're trying to get it out of your brain, that's literally a physical act of turning it to ash so that it leaves you, kind of metaphorically. For my purposes, for how I've repurposed it for intention setting, I just thought it was a nice way to sort of set the intention for myself and then burn it and then sort of just let it dissipate and let all the smoke surround me. This sounds so hooey, but it's what I did on New Year's Eve.
I made a vision board. I'm going to judge
Look,
you.
I did it on New Year's Eve. This is, and I didn't set resolutions, but I wrote these intentions down and then burned them.
I did neither thing.
Okay.
I just lived my life.
You're just so perfect. You have no goals, no
I do.
no
I shouldn't make too much fun of Andrea Warner because I do burn stuff around Chinese New Year to send to my deceased relatives.
There you go.
But it doesn't have anything to do with setting intentions.
That's okay. You're sending messages.
Yeah.
I'm sending them a car and stuff.
Yeah, that's nice. A car?
Yeah.
What?
You burned a car?
No, you can get paper representations of
okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Any item.
I thought you were just down at the dump burning a car, and I was like, Jesus, AG, that is hardcore.
No, you can go to Chinese, there's stores that specialize in this, and they just make paper representations of all kinds of gifts. And then you just buy a bunch, and then you can get a special kind of urn just to take to their gravesite and burn a bunch of stuff.
That's great. Chinese New Year's coming up soon. What are you going to burn? Or is it okay for you to tell us what you're going to burn?
Oh yeah. Well, money, obviously, all the time. Mostly sometimes food items. I've done a watch, some clothes.
How do you burn those? Do they burn?
Well, they're just made out of paper.
Oh,
Again,
paper
representation.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was imagining you
Not
with
like
watches
taking a
and
bunch of
food
clothes
and,
to the
okay,
grave.
got it,
Yeah, no. Yeah, and just, just anything you like, any of their favorite things that you think they'd like.
That's nice. I like that. As
Yeah,
like
I like
kinda,
that too.
I really honestly like I wish that there were. I mean, I have like a few ceremonies and like sort of rituals around like on for my dad on his birthday with like my family and on the day he died and stuff like that. But like I do wish that like I had like just like a little bit more sort of like formalized structure around honoring like ancestors as part of like my culture, but I don't.
I visited my great uncle's grave in Denmark when I was there 2 years ago. It was like a mass. This is very depressing. It was a mass grave because of the World War II. But yeah, having a place to sort of go and it makes a difference, I think. Was your dad cremated or buried somewhere?
Oh no, he actually is buried, and he's buried at the cemetery near us. I just don't really like. Cemeteries and like gravestones and stuff like that aren't really like for me. Like that's not a place where I want to do that kind of like that doesn't for me that doesn't honor him per se. And I know that is important for a lot of other people, but it's just like not really kind of like a place that has ever meant a tremendous amount. I like hanging out in graveyards for like music and other like I guess when it's like solstice festivals and stuff. I enjoy that, but I haven't really. It's not really like a thing that I've never even like gone to see his grave. Like it's just never been something that's been that interesting to me.
Okay, well, we have a guest with us, and I don't know if she's found any place where she would like to come in on any of this.
Yeah, do you want to talk about death and burning, or intentions, and or vision boards?
I need to burn more stuff, apparently. I don't remember the last time I burned anything except a candle.
Yeah, I mean, I did burn it on a candle. I lit my Jenny Lewis candle, and then I burned my intentions from my Jenny Lewis candle. That felt symbolic too.
Well, I'm just gonna say, okay, the vision board is that you're gonna ask me about?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, are you allowed to talk about what's on your vision board?
I suppose I could, but I don't really want to be too specific. I could, like, it's my innermost feelings. You see how I trivialized my innermost feelings? Obviously, I have some work to do. But,
sure, yeah.
But so, I mean, how do vision boards work? Do you just look at it and
I think everyone does it differently. When I finished, I realized that I had just ended up cutting out lots of pictures of words and things I liked already. And so other people, their boards were a little bit more like things they wanted to do specifically, places they wanted to visit and things. So yeah, mine just ended up being, obviously, I found a picture of Sofia Coppola in a nice blue shirt. So that ended up on there. Now, I don't know if that means I intend to try and meet her as I always have wanted to. But she's there on my vision board, which I don't know. If you're listening, Sophia, I'm sorry you're on my vision board. Or I'm not. I don't know.
What an honor.
Yeah. Is it like a vision board for this calendar year?
Yes, I think that's exactly how to look at it. And I might just make another one next year because I enjoyed it.
Where do you keep a vision board? Does it stay out and visible or like tucked away secretly?
It's on like a board. No one listening to this can see what I'm doing. Like about 2 feet wide by a foot high, maybe. I just put it on my floor, sort of leaned up, and I look at it. I guess I could look at it if I want, just to remind myself of things. I haven't really, you know what? That's glad you asked that because I don't know what to do with my vision board now that it's done.
You could burn it.
I could. That would be weird, but I don't think next year maybe I'll burn it if it didn't
You could
work
burn
out.
it at the end of 2021, and then as you make one for 2022, you could like collect the ashes and then like work them into your collage.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll loan you my burning urn.
Your burning urn.
That's nice. Yeah. That's a pretty nice offer. I don't have a burning urn. I just used the ashtray that we let our guests use whenever they like smoke on our patio.
I have a nice like colorful one made out of tin. So
Oh, wow. Nice.
Well, okay, that's what I'll do. But now that you say that, though, I am going to look up, what do you do with your vision board now? Like, should I look at it every morning? You know, should I be, before I go to bed? Like, what is the...
I would put
what's
it
the
like
thing?
behind my headboard if you have a headboard for your bed. Just so that it's like always there, and then like look at it like once a week or something.
Once a week. Okay. All right.
Just like
well,
as a check-in.
yeah, just to check in. So anyway, I don't know if anyone else is going to do this, listening to this now, but let us know, you know,
Please.
if you have practiced the art of vision board,
Yeah.
you know.
Or if you've like burned some intentions, or you've burned some stuff to get out of it, or you've like, you know, offered some gifts to the ancestors. Tell us all about it. I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And I'm Chelsea Birks.
And you're listening to Pop This. And we're so excited today. We're going to talk about Chungking Express. And we have a very special guest who you just heard, Chelsea Birks. So
Hi.
we're so happy you're here. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here.
I also just like
In your closet, or
In my closet. It's the only quiet room in my house. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, and I'm just gonna like say the wild thing that we discovered in setting up this whole like you being a guest is that you live 2 floors above me. So right now we are in the same building, but you're
That is
just
so
like
strange.
so
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
This
So
sounds
wild.
like a lie, but I literally figured this out because I was listening to the podcast for research before I came on, and I heard you all say your names, and then I looked down at a piece of mail and it said Andrea Warner, and I was like, yeah.
That is
Sorry, nobody
so
could see my
strange.
face, but
No, it was a you were
If
like
that
this
was
is
in a
curious.
movie, everyone would go, "Oh my god, that is just ridiculous."
it is a very Wong Kar-wai
Yeah.
coincidence, I think.
But it's actually also incredibly great timing because I would not have checked my packages that day. And so you made me go down to the lobby. Thank
Her
you.
touching your mail is the closest you'll ever get.
1 millimeter away from
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she goes and falls in love with someone else.
Yeah.
7 hours later, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we are talking about Chungking Express today. I'm going to give a little bit of a background for the film. But oh yeah, of course, like the first
Chelsea
like,
background too.
and and we'll do
Yeah.
Chelsea background as well. But the whole reason that we're doing this is because, well, we had such a good time doing In the Mood for Love, like late last year with Elaine Chow. And we at the time we were like, we really want to do more Wong Kar-wai films. And then the Cinematheque, which is a great movie theater here in Vancouver, they emailed us and they're like, hey, just so you know, we're doing like this whole, Wong Kar-wai big thing. And we were like, well, this is amazing. And this is what a nice time and an opportunity to do another Wong Kar-wai film. And Chelsea, you manage the on and off-site learning programs for the Cinematheque. And so it just seemed like such a good fit to have you come and be our guest because you also love Wong Kar-wai.
I do. I was so excited about the retrospective because I've been a Wong Kar-wai fan for quite a few years. And it's a little bit unfortunate that the retrospective was supposed to launch in 2020, but I've also just been enjoying watching new Wong Kar-wai restorations at home, which is really cozy. And they all look great. So definitely check them out. You can watch them all online. And Chungking Express especially is a treat because there's not been a good version of it available in years, and it looks phenomenal. I'm so used to this like horrible grainy copy of it, and now it looks spectacular.
It looks so beautiful.
Yeah, even on TV, just like streaming, it looks great.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do why don't we just do your full bio right now, and then we'll do the background and synopsis of Chungking Express. So, Chelsea Birks manages on and off-site learning programs for the Cinematheque. She has collaborated on a range of programs and events aimed at engaging her community with all aspects of film culture. Chelsea holds a PhD from the University of Glasgow and has over 8 years of experience teaching film studies in the UK and across the Lower Mainland. She was the recent recipient of the 2017 SCMS Student Writing Award and her winning essay, Objectivity, Speculative Realism, and the cinematic apparatus, I am not even smart enough to read that essay, was published in Cinema Journal. Her first book, Limit Cinema, Transgression and the Non-Human in Contemporary Global Film, will be published in 2021. Congratulations on your new book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so
Thanks.
exciting.
It's terrifying a little bit. Yeah. But it's exciting.
So, Lisa, do you want to read the background or the synopsis?
I do. I will
Okay.
read the background.
Great.
This is from Wikipedia. Chungking Express is a 1994 Hong Kong comedy drama film written and directed by Wong Kar-wai. The film consists of 2 stories told in sequence, each about a lovesick Hong Kong policeman mulling over his relationship with a woman. The first story stars Takeshi Kaneshiro as a cop obsessed with his breakup with a woman named May and his encounter with a mysterious drug smuggler, Brigitte Lin. The second story is Tony Leung as a police officer roused from his gloom over the loss of his flight attendant girlfriend, Valerie Chow, by the attentions of a quirky snack bar worker, Fei Wong. Chungking in the title refers to Chungking Mansions in the Sim Sha Su, Hong Kong, where Wong grew up in the 1960s. Express refers to the food stand Midnight Express, located in Lan Kwai Fong, an area in central Hong Kong.
Awesome. AG, do you want to do the synopsis?
Sure. This is taken from Google. Every day, Cop 223, played by Takeshi Kaneshiro, buys a can of pineapple with an expiration date of May 1st, symbolizing the day he'll get over his lost love. He's also got his eye on a mysterious woman in a blonde wig, played by Brigitte Lin, oblivious of the fact that she's a drug dealer. Cop 663, played by Tony Leung, is distraught with heartbreak over a breakup. But when his ex drops a spare set of his keys at a local cafe, a waitress, played by Fei Wong, lets herself into his apartment and spruces up his life.
Can I just say how much, first off, I had never seen Chungking Express, but you know that I was already in love with Tony. And this
First name basis. Here.
honestly, I love him so much. And, this movie it did nothing to quell it. And in fact, it made me go into like a big whole rabbit hole of like all of the information that I could find out about him. And I mean, it's not all glorious, but it's not bad. And I just love him. I love watching him on screen, and I love watching the way, this is going to sound so lame, and I apologize to all of you in advance, but his acting is so good that the way that he looks at Faye at like the sort of a very specific point in the film, but he looks at her with so much affection and like genuine love. I was like, oh my God, Carlos looks at me like that a lot. I'm like, he's so good at the acting. Tony's so good at acting. Anyway, I melted and I just about died in a puddle because I loved this film a lot. Anyway.
I thought you were going to highlight his undershirt ensemble.
Well, here's the thing.
That
so
he wears
normally,
quite often, which I'm not generally very attracted to, but
I am not very attracted to briefs at all. And I have made an exception.
Shocking
white briefs. Now, obviously, when you see a man in shocking white briefs, you want them to be shockingly white. You don't want to see a bunch of stains on an underpant, right?
Yeah.
So like that was pretty good. But like, yeah, I'm not like a undershirt, fine, but I prefer a boxer brief, frankly.
Well,
it was 95
really...
though. I don't even know if those had been invented then. So, 94, right?
But there's so many of the actors in this film just went on to become huge stars. Like, Takeshi Kaneshiro is like, it's interesting that you're kind of really focused on Tony as being like the heartthrob, because Takeshi is like a huge like heartthrob across Asia as well, and he
seemed like a boy in the movie though, like a teenage boy. So it was kind of hard
in this movie
for me
he's
to
very
go,
young. Yeah,
I know he kept saying he was 25, but he literally seemed like he was 15.
He seemed 18. I couldn't handle it. I was just like, I can't find you sexually compelling. I'm sorry.
But he's the same age as we are, more or less, in real life. Like, I get it. Like in '94,
maybe I would have been like all for him, but like as a grown-up woman in 2021,
I mean, just what you're saying, like attraction-wise, like there was something like watching he's like a puppy dog, really. You know,
and I think that character.
I just gotta run it out. Just gotta run it out. It's like you do a lab, right? You've got your lab, and you're like,
yeah.
There's too much energy going on here. Let's just run this out. Come on, boy.
Yeah. So sorry. I just really dove in.
Yeah.
Chelsea, as our guest, can you please tell us a little bit about...
Could you make what we said sound way more sophisticated? Because so far we have talked about men's briefs. So.
No, it's fine. Like, if you also want to talk about, like, the sexual appetite of any of the characters, it's fine. That's a valid entry point of criticism.
It's a movie about love.
Exactly. But yes,
I feel like
tell us.
most of my talking points also have to do with like the attractiveness of various stars. Honestly, like I don't know if I have anything more sophisticated to offer because I think that's like the most like basic pleasure of most Wong Kar-wai films and is like really strong in this one is you just like want to watch people's cheekbones and eyebrows just like be really beautiful on a screen as they like look at each other longingly. Like that's what it offers and it really delivers. I actually get the Takeshi Kaneshiro thing. I think he's like so good looking in like a boyish way, but it works for me. He's like supposed to be like he's also in the next film that Wong Kar-wai made, in which he plays like this real like loser who breaks into people's stores at night and basically takes people hostage to like buy his services. So he'll break into a barbershop and force people to get their hair cut, or break into a butcher shop and like thrust meat at people because he like can't get a normal job. But like he's so good looking that you're still like, I still might date him. Like it might be okay that that's his job.
And this is like relatable. Like at least he's not someone who's like just at home. Like he's still, even though he's breaking into people's places, he's actively pursuing work.
Oh, he's hustling. He's got like a real like ambition and drive. It's inspiring.
When was the first time you saw this film?
I'm a late comer actually to Wong Kar-wai. I didn't watch any Wong Kar-wai until my PhD, and then a lot of people got into like really like energetic fights at dinner parties over whether the two characters in The Mood for Love consummated their relationship, which I believe you guys talked about for some time in the last in the Mood for Love podcast. Yeah. But it got like really aggressive and I was like, people care a lot about this and I think I need to like get on board with Wong Kar-wai.
Does he say? I didn't even think to
but what is your opinion on In the Mood for Love?
I think I like it better that they didn't. Like I do like that idea that they just never consummated it, but a lot of people find that idea really emotionally fulfilling, I guess, but I quite like the missed connection and the lack of consummation. So I think it just depends on what you find more like emotionally satisfying. You can read it either way. That's why people got so upset about it. Yeah.
So this movie you came to a little bit later, or Wong Kar-wai in general you came to a little bit later. But like, do you remember the first time you saw this and like what your interpretation of it was?
I do. I saw it like lying on my bed in Glasgow on like a not so great stream on the internet. So it looked terrible and I loved it anyway. I thought it was like so fresh and energetic and I couldn't stop smiling after I watched it. And that's not usually how I feel after Wong Kar-wai because a lot of his films are so like they pack an emotional punch, but not necessarily a nice one. And this movie has its depressing moments, but for a Wong Kar-wai film, I think it's quite life-affirming. And it just has like a freshness that I loved. And yeah, I watched it in a row with like all of the Wong Kar-wai I could get a hold of, and this one stands out for sure for me.
Yeah. So AG, was this your first time seeing this one or no?
Oh, hell no. I saw this like in the night. I was obsessed with this film in the 90s when I watched it. Like, I went out as Bridget Lynn's character for Halloween one year.
I want to see pictures. Wow, I want to see pictures.
Nobody, of course, knew who I was supposed to be, but it was fun to dress up like that because you just get like a blonde wig and sunglasses and a trench coat.
And then you shot that person taking it way too far.
Yeah. But no, I mean, this was one of my favorite films in the 90s. Like I was obsessed with it. Yeah. And then watching it back this time, like the quality of it, the film is like amazing, like the picture and the colors and everything. And it was interesting to watch because I hadn't watched it for probably like 15 years or something like that, and it just like all came back, and it's just like, oh, Hong Kong in the 90s, like this is it, like it's like so it made me nostalgic for like Hong Kong, for the 90s, and like everything. So yeah, I really enjoyed rewatching it
Well,
this
especially
time.
that Cranberry song, right? That just keeps playing and playing and playing, which I'm not a fan of. So,
I love that song so much.
there's nothing more 90s than that Cranberry song. I mean, you didn't even need to know what year this movie was made. I mean, although California Dreaming is from the 60s and stuff. So, but in terms of a placeholder, having that Cranberry song, 90s.
I love that Cranberry song so much, and I love Faye Wong's cover. Like, that's Faye singing it. And I just like, I think she does such a beautiful job, and I love it. So, and like the music of the whole film. Anyway, we'll get to the music later, but like, I loved it so much that like, but so Lisa, have you seen Chungking Express before?
I had not.
I had not either.
I had not. I had seen In the Mood for Love several times before but I haven't branched out into others. And now I don't know. Like, I feel like, maybe this is a weird thing to say, I feel like maybe he's too successful in getting across that horrible, horrible feeling after a breakup of when it's just everything is lost and boring, and it feels like you're not connected to anybody. You don't really have a story right now. You're just kind of like a fish flailing on the ground. And this whole movie was that. And it was like, and I don't want to slight it for that, because that's what he wanted to do. And, just even, I'll go buy a can of pineapples and the dates, like and then the phone service to keep calling in and going to the same place. And then, like depressingly, you should talk to this girl, and then missing your chance. And you're like, I missed a chance. I didn't even know if I wanted it, but now I've got nothing except pineapple at my house. And like, I just felt it was extremely successful at being so sort of melancholy and lost feeling.
Yeah, I think it is, like, for sure. You know that I love a little melancholy. But I also did feel like it was, and I guess the first story is the one that really, so the first story for me is like, it's fine. But I'm like, I'm like all about the second story. And I think that's the way a lot of people sort of feel. But like, that second story really, at first, about like halfway through the second story, I was like, so the director of Amelie just like stole all of Amelie from this story, right? Like this, like Faye Wong is Amelie, and like like going into people's homes and like messing with different things and like being like disruptively cute,
yeah,
and like quirky and whatnot, and so like obviously like I feel like just like the huge success of Amelie, like, and then anyway, but knowing that came 7 years after Faye Wong had made this incredible character in this movie, like anyway, whatever. But like I know that sort of the manic pixie dream girl also got coined like in the mid 2000s or early 2000s, and this is sort of like pre that. And I certainly know a lot of men who would be like, I would love to have a beautiful elfin, lady break into my home and do random acts of kindness for me. But and for whatever reason, she's so good at it, it didn't annoy me. I actually really bought into the tenderness and this was, she liked him. She knew that it wouldn't do any good to tell him because he was heartbroken, and she just wanted to be near him, and like living this sort of ghost relationship that was like the most that either of them were like capable of at that moment. And I really fell for it.
Oh, I agree with everything you're saying. I do. I just felt there was like just such a weight of sadness, and not even like that sounds like weird. I'm trying to come up with the right word. It's not, it's like it's not even the sadness so much as it is just those long days. The way he would come home alone and just to put the plastic bag on the table, and it just had, that there was just such a routine to life, and it didn't have anything that was making you happy at the moment, but you thought something could, but you weren't sure. And I just thought that for those reasons, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, he nails it really well. Like, I think he does. But this, for him, like, reading what he said, like, this was his lighthearted film.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently I love heartbreak. Like, I don't find the film sad because I think I just, like, long to go back to periods of heartbreak in my life and find it nostalgic to think about, like, wasting days just, like, thinking about somebody that just broke up with me, which I didn't enjoy at the time at all. But in my head, that's like a really romantic and cheerful thought for some reason. So I've never read this film as sad. I've really, like, found it joyful and cheerful, even though it definitely shouldn't be. Like, this is not a optimal idea of romance at all.
No, I did not see any examples of optimal romance.
But when I watch it now, it strikes me as being so about being in your 20s and having that life where, like, things seem so fleeting and romantic things seem so serious and devastating. And I really noticed that this story was about, like, characters kind of coming to the end of their, carefree 20s and moving on to the next stage of adulthood kind of thing. Especially when, like, she leaves to go to California and becomes a flight attendant, and then comes back. They both seem more mature even, like, a year later in the story.
But even that scene in the first story where he's phoning all the women he knows in the hopes that somebody will, and, like, I haven't seen, you're married? 5 years? You have kids? So, yeah, there was that, but there was also a sense of, wow, like, even that guy that worked at the counter, at the food counter, was always like, just get another gal. Like this whole thing is about just settling down, get someone so you can just get rid of this whole, I'm going to, like, moon around and feel sad. And I hear what you're saying, Chelsea. There is something sort of like, how many million songs do we have on this very topic, right? I mean, so it's very creative for a lot of people to have this kind of heartache and loss and ennui, really, because there's nothing terrible happening in this movie. Really?
No,
right? Nothing.
It's pretty low stakes.
It's low stakes. These are handsome people.
But that's being in your 20s, right? That's being
except
in your
for that
20s.
Guy gets murdered. So let's. And
there's
a really, really dangerous, weird passport situation and drug smuggling, like,
and kidnapping.
Honestly, kidnapping a child.
Yeah.
Okay,
there is
scratch
quite
that. There was at the
quite a serious sort of sub storyline going on in the first one, but dealt with pretty casually. Like, I mean, there's more time spent on him tenderly cleaning her shoes than her having just murdered a bunch of people in cold blood.
Are we also to think he's a very bad policeman? Because not for 1 second.
He is. Well, it seemed to me, like, because he says at one point, I've caught one person in 6 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how they do policing in Hong Kong, but he seemed to be really on his own all the time. He's just like, is he just supposed to be sleuthing out crimes? Like, nothing gets reported.
Was he plain clothes too? Because the second cop
couldn't tell you.
Uniform. Yeah,
I'd like that kind of job. That would be.
All he seems
would
to
be
do
great.
is eat and drink coffee, which sounds great.
Yeah.
Going back to, I mean, I think there is something pretty high stakes in if you are a person who, and these characters seemingly are, at least, he thought he was settling down with this, like, beautiful flight attendant, and he had no idea that it was going to end, it seemed, like he seemed to sort of really be blindsided by that. And I really, like, I think it is, like, really high stakes for some people when the rug is pulled out from under them. Like, that's not something I think you get over that easily. And, like, and I think, like, both the characters, like, I do think it is interesting that, like, this is a movie in which it really centers sort of, like, how men respond to heartbreak and how they are, how they sort of like neither of them seem to really have anybody to talk to. They're just on their own. They're just sort of saddled with their own grief. They're making some like, not like great decisions. Like they both require these other like these women to sort of jolt them back into some kind of reality, even if it's like a fantastical one. Tony in his storyline, I mean, one of the only real moment of like significant, I think, like growth that we see for Faye, which I think is like, it felt really important to me to watch, because after we see her sort of like, it's very funny to watch her hide in his closet and like hide behind the door and like bring a bunch of fish. Like she changes all of these things in his apartment and he doesn't notice a damn thing. He's so oblivious. He's just like walking wounded through the world. And then when he finally like catches her, it's a surprise to him that like this has been happening. Like he's also
even
not
the
a very
song, the music.
He's
He's California Dreaming. She didn't. It was my CD. She says.
He's not smart.
No,
it seems
not a good cop.
but when she like realizes that they have this potential for this moment, and he asks her out, and she's like, "I have to go do this for myself for a year." I was so proud of her as like I was just like, wow, this is the most emotional growth she has. Like this is huge for her to like have done this sort of thing where she haunts him for a long time, and then he finally sees her and she's like, I really have to figure out how I see myself. And then I was really like moved by that. And I didn't know if we were going to get, because In the Mood for Love gave us like those 3 weird false endings where like it's a bunch of years into the future each time. And like we think that they're going to intersect somewhere, but they never do. And they just miss each other like a bunch. I didn't think he was going to give us like the happy ending. But like it makes a lot of sense to me that Tony is not a police officer any longer, and that he's now running this food stand, and that like she has come back and this is like, this new chance for them. Anyway, it's like super interesting to me, like just, and she does become a flight attendant, which is his ex's job. So he's just like replaced one flight attendant for another. But like, hopefully it's really her on her own terms.
Yes. I like all of that.
Well, I mean, just going back to talking about how the first story, it seems totally different from the second story in like many different ways. And I was reading that like he used different cinematographers for each story. And Christopher Doyle, who's famous for doing In the Mood for Love, obviously did the second part of the story. And the first story was done by a cinematographer named Andrew Lau, who's famous for doing like police kind of underworld kind of stories. And I was reading in the Criterion notes about it that, and maybe Chelsea, you can speak more to this, but the writer, Amy Tobin, was saying that like the divide between the two stories in the movie is like the turning point you can identify in Wong Kar-wai's career, where he goes from doing these kind of police stories and doing more fast-paced editing and more, kind of conventional stories to doing kind of these more romantic kind of sketches kind of type movies.
Totally. This is the first time that we see Wong Kar-wai as recognizably Wong Kar-wai, I think, because he was kind of just repeating all of the police procedurals and like action films that have been so popular in the 80s, and like they're really, really well done, but he doesn't really find his feet until Chungking Express, when he gets really experimental with cinematography and narrative, because his films before that had like pretty linear storylines, and then he just kind of gives up on that idea and decides to just jam things together as appropriate. But I think it really works.
No, I agree. And I saw in the outline you wanted to talk about the fashion, and yeah, that talk about iconic outfits, right? I mean, that trench coat and that blonde wig and those Manolas, the shoes there that she's wearing. I mean, that's all you
Faye
need.
Wong's
really.
haircut.
That's it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that haircut.
And there's like those tiny T-shirts that we used to wear in the 90s with like the big kind of image in the middle. Yeah.
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 No, just and their little sunglasses and just. But you said The first thing that occurred to me, Andrea, was when you said manic pixie dream.
Truly.
That I just thought right away, and that's who she was. And is this Ground Zero?
Well, the manic pixie dream girl is like, I mean, it's like, you know, it's the problematic trope, as it were, or whatever. But the guy who coined he was a film critic, I think, for like the AV Club, and it was after seeing, I believe it was like Elizabethtown or something, you know, in response to a series of women who are less women and more like a sort of a caricature that helps a man through some period of growth. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like it's and I think where we like,
and she makes no demands on him, and she's just full of life and energy, and she makes him feel really wonderful because she doesn't ask him to actually do anything or
like I know, like I remember Garden State and Natalie Portman's character in that film was like a classic example of
I forgot about Garden State. Yeah, she is a lot like Faye Wong, but in like a totally different direction. But that kind of like so aggressively quirky that you're supposed to find it cute really carries over.
Nathan Rabin, who coined the term after observing Kirsten Dunst's character in Elizabethtown, a 2005 film. That she, quote, or a manic pixie dream girl, quote, exists solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach broodingly soulful young men to embrace life and its infinite mysteries and adventures.
Okay, that is literally this movie.
However, he does say, like, that, but I do think what is different in this movie is that, like, we do see, because of what Faye does at the end, she doesn't show up for the date. She goes off and she has to like figure out if this dream of California, if this thing that she has always held up as like the pinnacle of her happiness is actually what that is.
But I feel like we also get a glimpse into her inner life, you know, when she's in that apartment switching things around and doing things like that's her life. That's like
that's a weird thing to do, though. Can we just say that?
It is. Weird. It's weird. It's weird. It's very upsetting.
It is. That is a very invasive thing to do to a person.
But that's her story, right? Like she's doing that.
Well, and that's the thing. So manic pixie dream girls are said to help their men without pursuing their own happiness. And as such, characters never grow up, thus their men never grow up. And I don't think that the whole point of this film is that we see both of them grow up. Mm-hmm. And we see her pursuing her happiness. Like her happiness is literally screwing with this guy as a means of flirting. Because I think like, you know, it's not, there are different sort of like steps to a relationship in 1994 and between this girl who works in this food stand and this police officer. Like they might have slightly different social standings as well, you know? And like, I think there's just like different sort of stratospheres of identity that they're sort of in conversation with each other. Like a flight attendant would, I think, be like on a different social level than a girl who works at a fast food stand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just think there's like different, and because she is really having such a good time. She's
Well, I just think it's possible to see the story unfolding from her point of view. Like you don't necessarily like it. I mean, you could see it from Tony's point of view, or you could see it from her point of view and just being like she's working at this kind of dead-end job. Or you could see it from the point of view
of the law, and it would be a crime.
But you know, I don't know. It's just like you could see it as her story. Like she's working this dead-end job. She's kind of messing around with this dude's apartment, and she ultimately goes away to California because that's what her dream is. So
a little on the nose there with that song, hey? Just saying.
But I love
and
that
the
actually,
bar
like
too,
and the bar, the California, the bar like across the street, like. Well, so Ebert liked it, but he didn't love it, so he gave it 3 stars. And I want to get your guys' thoughts about like this particular assessment. I'm just gonna read a small excerpt, but this is the kind of movie you'll relate to if you love film itself, rather than its surface aspects such as story and stars. It's not a movie for casual audiences, and it may not reveal all its secrets the first time through. if you are attentive to style, if you think about what Wong is doing, Chungking Express works. If you're trying to follow the plot, you may feel frustrated. When Godard was hot in the 1960s and early 70s, there was an audience for this style, but in those days, there were still film societies and repertory theaters to build and nourish such audiences. Many of today's younger filmgoers, fed only by the narrow selections at video stores, are not as curious or knowledgeable and may simply be puzzled by Chungking Express instead of challenged. It needs to be said, in any event, that a film like this is largely a cerebral experience. You enjoy it because of what you know about film, not because of what it knows about life.
Ouch.
Wow.
I take great exception to that.
I love
that
the
sounds
fact,
so
though,
much
I
worse
just
out loud.
I know
Yeah.
no matter what era a curmudgeon is in, it doesn't matter. Isn't that amazing?
Curmudgeon's gonna
to be,
curmudgeon. Like, what
they're-
are you gonna do?
Like now people say, well, at least, back in the day you went to a video store and it mattered and you talked to the clerk and you had to make an effort and take it home, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not all streaming. And 20 years from now, what it was going to be. Back in my day, we streamed things. And I don't know what you kids are doing now.
Are you downloading it into your brain?
Yeah,
How do you even
exactly, yeah.
how do you even appreciate film like that? Yeah, it's so stodgy. And I don't know if it's a movie that he returned to later in his life. That's like his initial review in 1994. But it feels to me like it's the kind of review where even he might have, near the end of his life, cringed and gone, I was kind of an old stick in the mud, wasn't I? You know what I mean?
I've never read the I know we did the an Agnes Varda film.
Yeah.
And I didn't read the reviews from that. I don't remember what reviews we read from that time, but there had to be quite an adjustment to that new wave of cinema where there wasn't the plot wasn't, super important.
That's what I took away from this review is just I never made the connection between this movie and the style of Godard, where it's just like the same way like his films are about like being French in the 60s, like it's a feeling. Like this is the feeling of Hong Kong in the 90s.
Yeah.
I just was really struck by that because I thought that was a kind of a tone deaf review, and to say that like it's like its substance or its style over substance basically is like you'd have to be very specifically resistant to the movie to not let story number 2 penetrate you in some way.
Especially if you've watched French films before from that time where
he's watched so many movies.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of surprised at
It sounds to me like he's more interested in criticizing young people than the film,
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
where he's
Yes.
like, young
Yes.
people are not going to get this because they're uncultured swine.
Yeah.
But like,
they've
but,
got
like-
the latest Bruce Willis and they're going to be happy with that.
but I also think like this film was so quintessentially 90s and he can't possibly have known how influential and cool it would become. So maybe he was thinking young people would hate it because it resembled 1960s new wave, but he forgot that like really appeals to young people and that they embrace that kind of formal
Still,
innovation.
right?
Yeah. Like students, like 18-year-olds love this film still. And I think it plays better now even to mainstream audiences because we're more used to like non-linear storylines in like a mainstream way. Because like this gets paired a lot with Pulp Fiction because they came out the same year. Yeah. And like that kind of fragmented narrative seemed really new at the time, but I think you can make like mainstream big budget films with that kind of structure now. So people are I don't know. This is my like proposal that people are less resistant to non-linear narratives and don't have as much trouble as maybe Ebert thought they would in 1994 because he thought young people would just give up.
Yeah, very just an odd review. Just I think that you picked a good part of it, but it just doesn't really speak to the movie at all or about it.
No, I know. Yeah, it just like I mean there are like other things that are much more complimentary, but like I just it even like some of the other reviews specifically from that year, it tend to be people grappling with trying to understand what it is, and the adulation is a little bit later.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it could also be like, I you know, as anything is like, there's probably like a lot of sort of unacknowledged racism as well in like just not seeing themselves represented on the screen and being like, how can you understand the story? Like, I mean, it's not hard.
Well, and I think, it's like anything when Wong Kar-wai had this like worldwide massive success with In the Mood for Love in 2000, like people went back to revisit his old work and had like, maybe a bit more respect for what those movies did because they now like saw him as a master of film or, whatever.
Yeah. I used to like when Entertainment Weekly would go back and review a movie. Like, yes. And you remember those? They would say, and always a bit more of maybe we weren't quite, weren't thinking right. Or I think sometimes you need that to get away from the time it was made or something and get some, I don't know.
There's such like, I mean, and I think like I've done a lot of this kind of writing of my own is just like the looking back and eviscerating a lot of old criticism that's of its time, because typically a lot of those reviews, I think, lack context. They typically go for whatever the worst take is at that moment, like whether it's sexist or racist or misogynistic or ageist or like whatever the worst possible cultural take is. A lot of the people who are doing reviews or were in positions of power to be reviewing things, like a lot of people are just like have pretty bad cultural takes, and they don't have like, it's just not or there was like a viciousness that was considered fun and edgy in the 90s and the 2000s that we no longer abide by, that it has to have some substance to it. It can't just be making fun of somebody because of something that, you think it's okay to make fun of somebody about. Like it's just I think we're moving on to like ideally more compassionate criticism that's more constructive and less tearing down, ideally that's what's happening. Yeah. Not always, but ideally. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing like a broader cross section of identities represented in our critic space, as opposed to like just straight white men or just straight white women. Like it's like moved beyond that a little bit. So that's changed a lot of like what cultural criticism looks like. So that's great. But yeah, I don't know. This movie, we love to end on whether we think something pops. And for me, this movie pops so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pop.
Yes. It pops a lot more for me after having this conversation too.
Oh, that's great. Aww.
Well, I just feel like sitting with it was, like I said, I felt like it was just really sad. I wish I was seeing things like the way you did, Chelsea. I just was feeling, I don't know, but it also, I feel a little bit pandemic-ness too. So just this kind of routine of the same right now in my life. So watching this movie, the sameness of what they were doing all the time was, I think, making me extra sad.
Not in the mood to eat
like,
30
you could go further.
Pineapple.
Yeah, you could go like to a whole other neighborhood if you wanted, but no, not you,
But it also, it's kind of made me, I want to watch more Wong Kar-wai movies, so I'm glad that Cinematheque is having their feature till the end of January.
Yeah, and then hopefully in theaters sometime soon we'll start playing the restorations actually on a screen, which seems like a magical future fantasy event, but hopefully will really happen.
To go to a movie theater?
Yeah,
I know.
I hope it happens too. But yeah, like just the fact that you can watch Wong Kar-wai's films right now online, like through the Cinematheque, is amazing. We also love to leave our episodes on something we recommend. So, Chelsea, as our guest, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I have one Wong Kar-wai related one and one non-Wong Kar-wai related one, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, great.
That didn't sound very enthusiastic.
Yeah, that's kind of okay, sure.
That's no, I was trying to like low key show, like I didn't want to be too enthusiastic. I was trying to like downplay my enthusiasm.
Okay, great.
Success.
Yeah. Maybe like a little too successful. No.
Sorry. I know. Oh my God. I'm so excited.
Agreed.
Please tell me both your recommendations.
Happy Together. If you haven't seen it, the restoration is amazing, and if you're into Tony Leung, he and Leslie Chung make a beautiful couple. They break up a lot, so it's even worse in the like living through that feeling of breaking up kind of mood, because they break up like 17 times, and each time it's awful. And like it might be a weird watch right now because Leslie Chung is like injured and sick for a lot of it, but it's beautiful. It's one of my favorites. And then lately I have been thinking a lot about the spring and how excited I am about the spring in general. And then I remembered my favorite springtime tradition, which is when Everest season starts, I reread Into Thin Air.
Yes.
And I think a lot about Everest and how
Me too. Wow.
I'm just like
Oh.
happy I'm not on Everest, and I just like love reading about experiences of people on Everest, and I'm just delighted every year that that's not my experience and that I didn't make those decisions. So
I must segue from that
Yeah,
into
please.
mine, because my segue is Netflix's new Fran Lebowitz, Pretend It's a City, Martin Scorsese's series.
Oh, yeah.
Just following her around, and she has a really great scene where she's like, why are people climbing mountains? It is not a big deal. It is a stupid thing to do. You do not need to do it, and it won't do anything for you.
totally.
So, like, don't. And I feel I've always just loved, I mean, I'm not like, it seems like stupid. Oh, I like Fran Lebowitz. Oh, look how unusual you are, Lisa. But I just think spending time with someone like her, and the title is even funny. I mean, granted, it's pre-pandemic, but, she was walking past somebody in New York on their phone, texting, and they were kind of getting in the way, and people were stumbling. And she wanted to walk up to them and go, pretend it's a city. Like, how would you act if you knew you were in a city instead of this little place you thought was just yours? So anyway, I think that I've just been noticing how many people are watching it right now, and it just feels like the right thing. I feel like we're very lucky to have it right now because I need to think about cities and witty people again.
That's awesome. That's great. And what's the documentary called?
Pretend It's a City.
Okay. And Netflix.
Yeah.
Awesome. AG, do you want to go next?
Sure. I thought I would give everybody a Cobra Kai update because that's what I've been doing.
Yes.
But plus but also I have a recommendation. But so yesterday I sort of fleetingly heard just a bit of sports radio while I was in the car. And one of the hosts, I heard the host say, someone told me that Cobra Kai is the best show since Breaking Bad. And I was like, that's such an amazing kind of connection to me.
Would you say that's true?
Well, I've been thinking about it because I'm a fan of both. And I mean, I've been thinking about it for like 24 hours now. And I realized that there is a connection between, like, the series are both like about these broken men that are trying to find redemption. And one does it by becoming a drug dealer, and one does it by starting a karate dojo and resuming a 30-year-old karate rivalry. But it just like kind of blew my mind for a second that like in someone's television watching universe, there's like a direct line between Breaking Bad and Cobra Kai.
Well,
Amazing.
there is for me now because I'm done with men's redemption stories, so I'm going to have to put that one on the shelf for at least another 2 years. I have up to here with men's redemption stories.
If it's any consolation, he's a failure at
They
finding
always
redemption.
are. Gosh, they always are. It's like, anyway.
You said you also had a recommendation?
Yeah, my real recommendation is this Chinese drama I've been watching called Nothing But 30. And you can watch it on YouTube right now, but there's like tons of commercials. So you can also, which I'm going to eventually do, subscribe to yet another service where I can watch like Asian dramas.
Nice.
But Nothing But 30 is about, apparently in China, it's become really popular right now to tell like stories about women. And it's like television's having a real feminist moment. And this story is like about women who are over 30, because in Chinese culture, like being over 30 pretty much means like you're expected to be married, you're expected to be starting families, you're expected to have like your life sorted out basically. And it's sort of like these three women from totally different backgrounds living in Shanghai that have to deal with all these pressures and expectations. And yeah, it's a really good show. And it's really fascinating to find out like how it's a reflection of what's going on in Chinese culture right now.
That's awesome. That sounds great. And what was it called again?
Nothing But 30.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I am going to recommend a book from 2019 that I finally read, and I read it through the Audible. I did an audiobook, and it's such a good performance. First, I'm going to say that it's a book by Kylie Reed called Such a Fun Age. Did any of you read it? It's super good. It's I won't give you the whole thing, but this is how it's described. So like everybody recommended it. It was like a Reese Book Club pick and New York Times bestseller and long listed for the Booker Prize. And anyway, it's Entertainment Weekly. Entertainment Weekly called it the most provocative page turner of the year. NPR said, I urge you to read it. A striking and surprising debut novel from an exhilarating new voice. Such a Fun Age is a page-turning and big-hearted story about race and privilege set around a young Black babysitter, her well-intentioned employer, and a surprising connection that threatens to undo them both. I mean, well-intentioned, I think, is a generous description of her employer, but that's, fine. It's so good. It does have like several of the characters, not like the hero, but several of the other characters. Like there's like a pretty like fat phobic storyline current underneath it. So I'll give that sort of a heads up to anybody who is not interested in participating in that, which, can't say as I blame you. But the person who narrated the book is Nicole Lewis, and she just does like a brilliant job. She's so good. And it's a great book. I loved it. I listened to it like nonstop for 2 days. And I also did a lot of vacuuming and cleaning during that time. So this is how I convince myself to do more cleaning, is I find a great book to listen to on Audible.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah. But I'm really excited to do Mariah Carey's and Jessica Simpson's biographies next, because I've heard great things about both of them. Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I hope that you've had a good time.
It's been so much fun. I'll talk about Wong Kar-wai like any day, but yeah, this has been great.
That's awesome. Anywhere that you want people to come and find you online or anything, or you want people to know about where they can pre-order your book, or...
Oh my gosh. Maybe I'm terrified about people ordering my book because I still haven't let it go. Like, I'm still not ready for it to be in the world. But yeah, you can find me at the Cinematheque's website is the easiest way. So if you go to thecinematheque.ca and click on About, you'll see my like very shiny headshot and my email address, and just send me emails about Wong Kar-wai.
That's great. That's perfect. You can listen to us here, obviously, as you do. You could hang out with us on social medias, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. You could stream us on Spotify. People did a lot of that last year, which is nice. I like seeing people's Spotify updates. And you could rate and review us 5 stars.
Always 5 stars. And thanks to Andrea Gin, our producer and our co-host during the pandemic days. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. And
thank you so much, Chelsea, for joining us.
Thank you.
Hope everyone goes to watch some Wong Kar-wai films.
Yes.